Processes and tools dominate today's Agile discussions, but we are devoted to the individuals and interactions that make it work. From the beginner to the veteran practitioner, we have something for you. Welcome to Agile for Humans.
All right, welcome to this week's episode of Agile for Humans. I'm your host, Ryan Ripley. Joining me today, everyone loves Dave West. Dave, how are you?
I'm good, Ryan. I'm not sure everybody loves me, but my mum and my wife and my kids do.
All right, I love you too, Dave. You're great.
Ryan, and I love you.
All right, now that it's awkward, let's start. No, so Dave's coming back. Last time we talked to Dave, we were at a TechWell conference. We were talking about all sorts of awesome things going at Scrum.org. So Dave's back because, as many of you heard from the press release at Agile 2018, Dave, you have a new class, or I should say we have a new class, right?
We have a new class, and that's an important concept. Yeah, so PSM-II and Advanced Scrum Master class hit the stores, as it were, on the Monday at Agile. So it is available. We're really excited about it, and we're looking forward to many people taking it and us learning and them learning and everybody getting better at delivering valuable software, valuable products, and in an agile way.
Yeah, so Dave, something interesting about the way that Scrum.org went about this, because there are other classes out there, but what I really, again, another really cool, why I picked this path, because a lot of the listeners know I'm a professional Scrum trainer with Scrum.org, and one of the reasons I picked this path is that you guys actually live the Scrum path, right? And so there is a PSM-II test out there. And I think you guys collected a ton of data. You saw what was the students needed, and then you've put the course out as opposed to going in the opposite direction. Can you talk a little bit about kind of the learnings from the assessment, the learnings from some trial courses, and ultimately what ended up getting delivered to the market?
Yeah, let me tell you the sort of journey. So we have tried every different way of delivering classes. We have tried creating a class, getting feedback, building assessment afterwards. We have tried doing them both at the same time. We've tried everything, and we've learned lots of stuff along the way. In the case of PSM-II and Advanced Scrum Master class, what we did was really quite interesting. So about, I guess it was 2 and a bit years ago now, we launched PSM-II, the assessment. The reason why we launched that was because we found a number of our trainers, some of our professional Scrum trainers, were engaged with clients basically doing Scrum, and the client wanted some sort of empirical, validated way to prove that they'd learned some stuff and got better at doing Scrum, doing Scrum Mastery, really, and being a Scrum Master. So we launched PSM-II. The idea was always, though, that we would, out of that, build some improved learning materials. Now, but we didn't know what that was. And I'll be honest, I was like, I'm not quite sure. Is it going to be coaching materials? Is it going to be workshop-y? Is it going to be online materials? What is it going to be? So we put the assessment in market, and hundreds, thousands of people took it, and we learned a lot. We got a lot of feedback, and that drove us slowly. And seeing you guys, you professional Scrum trainers, our community of 230 odd professional Scrum trainers in the world, we saw these people using it and how they were using it and providing lots of feedback. And from that, we actually worked with the community to build out. First, it was a workshop, I'll be honest. We tried it. We then used the PSM-II to empirically test the results of it. We built out a class that's a little different from perhaps some of our other classes. It's very experiential. It uses the techniques. It's kind of like cooking to learn cooking, if you understand what I mean. Is that a good metaphor? It's probably not a good analogy, is it? It's probably like, you use the techniques of being a good Scrum Master to learn the techniques of being a good Scrum Master. And that the data that we had from PSM-II, coupled with the usage in market by the professional Scrum community, our trainers using it, drove us towards the creation of this class. So we worked in a very empirical, very Scrum-based way, which was very interesting and a little Yeah, I mean, no surprise. It worked. We learned a lot. It isn't the class that I originally thought, actually. It's done a bunch of movement, but I'm really excited to bring it to market. I'm really excited for people to start using it because I think, honestly, you will be a better Scrum Master. You'll be a better person, actually, after you attend this class.
Yeah, no, I've been able to take a look at the materials, have talked a lot with people that have been at the center of creating it. When people have asked me, because we've very quietly have discussed with some of our favorite clients, hey, this thing could be coming. You really want to get at the front of this. And they're asking me what the experience is like. And what I've told them was, I'm usually, and so Dave, I'm a little jaded, right? I've seen a lot of classes. And by the middle of day one on most classes, I'm like, all right, I see where this is going. Can we just, move along? Looking at the materials for PSM-II, I mean, this is just, it's 2 days of just, it's like a roller coaster and you're just constantly engaged.
Yeah.
I mean, it is one of those where, and talking to other trainers who have gone through the Train the Trainer version of the course and have gone, I mean, everyone was just, their minds were just blown. And this is the hardest crowd to impress,
Yeah, I think so. We do obviously when we're running the Train the Trainers, we survey continuously. We get data continuously, so we try to live our own values. And what was funny is that the trainers are exactly like you're saying, Ryan. There's this there's somebody that works for Scrum.org. He's not a trainer, Kurt Bittner. The Kurt Bittner test is he's usually bored after like 35 minutes of any class because he's super smart. He was an analyst at Forrester. He's like this, and he reads and he consumes, like he listens to podcasts at 5 times speed. Is that guy? And I think he might be a robot. I'm not totally sure. I was almost trying to cut him once just to see if he actually bled or like wires fell out. But anyway, he said, "This is very interesting. I'm exhausted." He said that it fulfilled the Kurt Bittner test, which was incredible. And I think the reason why though, Ryan, and I think this is worth actually talking, and I'm not, our other classes are awesome, they're a little bit different, is when we were building this, when it was being developed with the data, with the experiences, we were very conscious of the audience. Like this is aimed at Scrum Masters. This is aimed at helping them deliver the 3 things that they need to do. A Scrum Master serves the team, the Scrum Master serves the product owner, the Scrum Master serves the organization. And they do it using a number of different stances, manager, coach, agony aunt. No, that isn't a stance, but sometimes it feels like it should be. They use these different techniques. So what we tried to do was create an environment where you explored them. And we have very clear learning. We have, obviously, as you well know, the learning objectives and our use of GitHub and all that stuff. So we had this, but we were very focused on actually clicking the bits in their brain to practice the techniques so they could literally go back the day afterwards and say, oh, hey, we've got this particular issue. Let's use this facilitation technique. Maybe it's from liberating structures or visual facilitation or whatever. Oh, hang on a minute. These are the things that we're trying to get out. So we made it very much like that. And that both made the class incredibly valuable in terms of the experience, but also, interestingly, because we were sort of eating our own, it made us improve the class every single delivery. And it's been really an interesting experience. Yeah,
it's one of those situations where, look, PSM-I is an awesome class. Like I've taught... I think I've taught it 6 times in the last month. I love teaching PSM-I. I love seeing the light bulbs go off. That class is really about mastering Scrum. And what I really love about the bent of PSM-II is it's like, look, we're not even going to talk about the framework. Like this is not a topic. Like if you do not know the framework, take the PSM-I. It's an awesome class. Stephanie and Simon do a wonderful job with it. They're keeping that really fresh and relevant and awesome. But if you need to know the framework, go there. PSM-II is like, look, you've spent a few years as a Scrum Master, you have some experience, but perhaps facilitation is still difficult. I know I interview a lot of Scrum Masters when I'm working in full-time roles, and one of the things I try to do is teach me Scrum and have them facilitate retrospectives. And that's often a gap in some of the Scrum Masters, even the really good ones who get Scrum. And so what I really love about this class is, like you were saying, people are going to walk away being a better facilitator, which is actually, it's an important skill. I think it's a crucial skill. But you're actually going to walk away with practical tools to facilitate the liberating structures that you mentioned, some of the in-depth discussions about how do you actually prepare and facilitate all of the Scrum events. And really getting into that, I think it's raising the bar for Scrum Masters in the entire industry. I really think that people coming out of this class are going to have an advantage over Scrum Masters who haven't because of, these new tools, these new techniques, the liberating structures, and really spending some time. Dave, there's a definition of done exercise in this class, and we got to see it. So a lot of people may not know, maybe this is a little inside baseball. The trainer community meets up from time to time. We get together, we show each other new techniques and facilitation methods and have a lot of cool discussions. And the two course stewards for PSM-II, Barry and Christian, they were in town for the last one. They showed us this definition of done exercise. Dave, this thing just blew my mind.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah, we're watching them facilitate and to get a bunch of trainers to actually participate and facilitate this definition of done exercise that makes done explicit but also shows your gaps. And after about 10 minutes, every trainer in there is just staring at it, dumbfounded, going, holy cow, we have to go do this with all of our teams right now.
Yeah, it's one of those. And I mean, we're fortunate because we get to draw on 230, 240 people doing this every day. We get the benefit of that. And as you said, one of the key parts of being a trainer is that you get you have to go to a face-to-face every year, and that is to basically sharpen your sword and also maybe drink a few drinks and have a laugh and share some commiseration stories and the like. It's very important to build community because it means then people help each other. And this is a great example of that. And as I said, we use GitHub to sort of grab all the content and to provide some sort of structure around it. But ultimately, it's the community that's driven it. The definition of done exercise is, when I saw it, I was like, oh, yeah, because I'm a product owner. Let's be honest, Ryan. I am no Scrum Master. I am not designed with those emotions. I want to tell people what to do. I'm all about, I'm like, yeah, this is the way. Even if it's wrong, it doesn't matter. We're going to storm the wrong hill, but we're going to do it. Whereas Scrum Masters are just the really good ones, and our community has a lot of them. You see something really, and the exercises and the mechanisms inside the class are really to sort of like teach you how to do that. I mean, I'm still not 100% certain that people that haven't got the sort of natural bits and bytes in your head to be a Scrum Master can be a good Scrum Master, but ultimately this will take people that have maybe got those but don't know how to take it to the next level. It will definitely take them to the next level. Yeah, excited.
Yeah, very much so. This is so of course our key focus today is PSM-II, but what's interesting, at least from my perspective, is in the last year or so, two other classes came out as well. So PAL-E, which is one that clearly is near and dear to my heart. I love that course. The PSK, Professional Scrum with Kanban. For those out there who aren't aware of PAL-E, it's Professional Agile Leadership Essentials. And now PSM-II, with 3 classes coming out in the year. I mean, it seems like the pipeline is very vibrant for new learnings and new exploration in the Scrum world.
So a couple of points about that. So you would say, oh my gosh, you didn't do anything for so long, and then everything's coming out now, and some of our trainers have definitely said that. The reason why this is happening is there's a couple of dimensions. Number one is when I joined Scrum.org almost 3 years ago, when Ken said, hey, come and help me create this, extend this organization, take it to the next level, I brought in a lot of the sort of open source community stuff that I'd been working on with Mylin and Eclipse and those guys. So I brought that in, and that instantly created this very different sort of environment around developing new ideas and the like. I also brought in, I'm a big fan of measurement, and so starting to use the data that we had to really start driving a different view of how what we're doing. So Kanban's a great example. So we got data that illustrated that the majority of Scrum teams are using Kanban. Okay. Now, are they doing it well? That was another piece of data. That was interesting. There was a lot of contradictions and conflicts, that sort of like, we can't do aging because, with community flow doesn't work so we're like, hang on a minute. So we reached out to some awesome people. Luckily, we had Steve and Yuval were in our community already, and they said, hey, have you met Daniel Vacanti? And he was the first, you could argue, Scrum Master, but obviously it was a Kanban project, Scrum Master on a Kanban. And he is like, hey, he knows it. And we started talking to him, and we found very quickly that there was a lot of synergies. So that was something that the data and the community sort of exposed to us. We then built the materials. We worked with people that were really smart in this area, Daniel and Yuval and Steve Porter. When we brought together this Scrum with Kanban, the idea that you can use the mechanisms of teams, you can use the roles, the events, the empiricism, the self-organization, and then add the practices of Kanban to make it awesome. Again, a Scrum Master empowers great. The PSK is great for Scrum Masters or even developers, but predominantly Scrum Masters for making things more transparent and really making your work flow and making the team a lot more empirical, getting real data. It's pretty awesome for that. So that's the reason why maybe it's taken a little too long, but I wanted to do it right. I wanted to use data. I wanted to do some experiments. And, PSM-II is a great example of that. POW, another great thing. We kept getting data that showed us that leadership was missing in terms of Scrum adoptions. There was this big hole that, the PSM, some of them went on that, some of them didn't. There wasn't anything, sort of focused on their particular set of needs. That persona was missing. So we were like, because it's not in the Scrum Guide, right? Whoa. Well, guess what? You need people around Scrum teams and nexuses to make it successful, to build an environment for success. And we have built a class and evolved the class. I must admit, 1.0 came out. It was a good class. We learned from it. The assessment now is out. We're getting a lot of data on that, and we're definitely inspecting and adapting on PAL as we go, and that will hopefully create an environment for leaders to be successful.
Yeah, it's really awesome to see a lot of these things come out, and I don't know. I, for one, I would never criticize taking longer to do the right thing. I mean, there's plenty of things in the marketplace that came out too fast, and now there's negative buzz, and you never want that. And so I'm actually pretty impressed with all the feedback that's come back on PSK, on PAL-E. I think PSM-II, people are going to go nuts when they start seeing this class, because I think you guys actually took the time to sit back and say, what does a Scrum Master actually need? And in some cases, I know I've worked in a lot of different organizations. In some cases, we had to figure out how to incorporate flow into a sprint. And so for that case, that PSK is perfect for that. In other cases, I worked in middle management and that early executive level often. So I was sitting in the C-level suite offices or the VP offices trying to figure out how the hell to explain Scrum in a way that these people cared. And PAL-E really empowered me in a lot of ways, right? And so now with the PSM-II, we can finally sit down with these Scrum Masters and say, look, it's awesome that you have this deep dive knowledge of Scrum. Now, can we talk about facilitation? Can we talk about coaching? Can we talk about mentoring? Can we talk about, a lot of the things we talk about in the PSM today, but we don't get a lot of time for it, is about revealing things to people, but not resolving. And so now every tool, every facilitation technique, all of this stuff in PSM-II is really saying, let's make that practical. Here's how you actually reveal an issue to a team without resolving it, and then here's how you facilitate them to consensus or decision. And it's really that next level, next step that a lot of it's that progression of Scrum Master to really that next level of competency that, man, this thing is, people are going to see this class and some light bulbs are going to go off and they're going to go back to their jobs the next day with brand new facilitation, coaching, mentoring techniques. I think the profession of software delivery is going to get better day one of people going back to their work. Like, that's how excited I think the whole community is about this. So So Dave, never apologize for being late. I think this thing is right on time, and the people who are fortunate enough to sit the class, I think they're going to have a huge advantage over the rest of their community.
So, Ryan, you're right. But as a product owner, any good product owner always thinks you're late, never done enough, always, that sort of like appetite. I'm the hungry guy at the all-you-can-eat Vegas buffet. And, that sort of symbolizes most product ownership. You're sort of like, I want to do so much. I want to do it faster. I want to get, and sometimes you have to wait for data. And sometimes you have to wait to get the right, reflections, which is understandable, but it still frustrates me, Ryan. So I'm excited about it. I think it will be a good class. I think we're going to get lots of great data. Well, the other thing that it illustrates, which I think is interesting, is that I think we're in certain markets, like the Netherlands, for instance, but certain parts of the US, maybe because of people like you going into those parts, what we're seeing now a sort of a maturity. It's not about why we do Agile, why we do Scrum. It's not even that debate anymore. It's how do we do it? How do we make it better? How do we deal with some of these complex problems that the environment has created around our Scrum teams? Problems around ownership, problems around getting more data back rapidly, problems around legislation and the constraints of privacy in Europe, for instance, or the constraints of the FDA and those sort of constraints. How do we deal with those things? And ultimately, whenever I've talked to Ken and around this and other Scrum Masters, the really smart ones say something which is really annoying, which I hate and I love at the same time. They say, hey, you got a group of really smart people. They can work it out if you give them an environment to do that. They can solve these problems. They can make these choices explicit. A choice, releasing software, you can release software as fast as you want. The slower you are, that's a choice. But making it explicit and empowering teams to make that choice explicitly is really important. The same's true of legislation. The same's true of the constraints that you live in. People are amazingly smart. We live in a world of incredible people. And all Scrum does, and all the Scrum Master really does, is open that potential. So I have a sort of moral responsibility to help that potential, because we can solve loads of the problems that are in front of us if we just allow the teams and the people that understand the problems to do it.
No, I love that, Dave. And I think that the PSM-II class is going to teach this next generation of Scrum Masters exactly how to do that. And I hope they walk away from the class with that kind of message. The other thing I wanted to touch on real quick, because I know you're busy and we'll get you back to your day of leading the Scrum efforts globally here. It's the marketing side. So not only has the class pipeline been very rich, the leadership has certainly been awesome, and the support in the PST community. What's been really amazing, and I know you work with Eric Nyberg quite a bit on the marketing push. I love this new push on, hey, look, Scrum.org is the home of Scrum. I mean, I absolutely love this messaging because, first of all, it's true, but just the whole, like, here it is, this is where it lives and breathes, and this is where all of the great courses and that come from. Can you talk a little bit about that, where this push on the marketing side, all of the great work going on that side of the house, and just kind of the evolution of that?
So what's interesting is there's a lot of false news out there, right, Ryan?
Oh yeah.
And there's and this is, I know it sounds a little bit political. I don't mean to be political, but there's a lot of stuff. Oh, Scrum's good, Scrum's bad, Scrum's, story points are a fundamental part of Scrum. Velocity is a key, burn down is a key mechanism for Scrum, blah, 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 blah. And all those things probably are good in context. So what we've tried to do at Scrum.org, and Eric has definitely been a champion of this, but generally everybody, I think, in the community, is to try to be that place of truth, and to be mature, and to be grown up, and to live the values, and to be professional around it. Ultimately, Scrum is a really great framework, not process, for helping you work in an empirical way, self-organizing, continuously improving. To make that framework work, you have to build bridges to other ideas and concepts, BDD, TDD, all the practices of XP, all the continuous delivery, the work of Jez Humble, all of this stuff's appropriate and great in the context of this framework, and trying to build on this framework in a consistent way, being honest and open to other ideas, things like less, safe, all of these stuff. It doesn't, Kanban, obviously PSK, build community, because what we need to be is and, not but, Scrum's great, but it's not enough to deliver amazing products. But if you can start with a consistent, honest view of Scrum and then build on that and highlight when there's differences of opinion, highlight when there's friction, but do it in a professional and respectful way. It's a key value of Scrum, respect. Respect on the team is incredibly important for creating empiricism and transparency, right? We get that. Respect in the market is incredibly important for improving what we do. We haven't got all the answers at Scrum.org. Our community hasn't got all the answers. We can ask some great questions and we can learn together. And if you can only do that if you respect others and you respect the world. So that's what we try to do. And marketing is the mechanism that we do it, because web content, events, PR, etc., AR, all of that stuff. And we try to drive that message home. And we're fortunate that we have a community of professionals inside the PSTs, people like you that have taken this to heart and continue to do that. Doesn't mean we always get it right. Doesn't mean sometimes our tone is incorrect and we have to then inspect it and go, ooh, that was a bit, what did we mean? Oops, accident, because we are humans ultimately, as is the title of this podcast. We make mistakes, but as long as we can learn from them and try to keep these values front and center, the 5 values of Scrum front and center.
Yeah, Dave, I think that's great. And so want to thank you for coming on the show and talking about PSM-II and some of the other directional things at Scrum.org. I always learn a lot talking to you, and I love these conversations. Super excited about PSM-II, so by now the release has happened. So it's something exciting, Dave, for me and Todd Miller. So we've teamed up. So we've decided that PSM-II is it's so facilitation heavy. So we, like you said, we learn to cook by cooking. Well, in this case, we're doing Scrum to learn Scrum. So we've teamed up, having decided that the best student experience for this would be co-training. So in the show notes, the listeners can check out. I think Todd and I are doing 5 or 6 PSM-IIs between now and the end of the year. We're going to be all over the country, and actually we're doing some international. And so we're going to really get the PSM-II message out there, encourage the listeners to check that out in the show notes. We'll get some pictures and other materials for you to preview about the course. It's super exciting stuff. I know Todd and I are really looking forward to traveling and meeting a ton of students for this and just seeing those amazing aha moments come out. But Dave, thank you for your time. Really appreciate you coming on to talk about this stuff, and really just love everything coming out of Scrum.org, and just always appreciate learning more.
Thanks, Ryan, and thanks, everybody. And, the only way we can get better is by everybody using it and feeding back information. So if you go on a PSM-II class or you read some stuff, feel free to reach out to us and let us know, and we can only get better by your help.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks for listening to Agile for Humans. Let's keep the conversation going. Drop us a question on Twitter @AgileForHumans or visit agileforhumans.com.